What's up, everybody? Chris Kipling here. I am the host of the Suited Warrior podcast. As you can see, I'm suited up with my tweed suits. So one of our sponsors here. So make sure you stop by over at the Sarasota location and see Don or Rob, and they will hook you up in one of the suits. So we're very thankful for them. Also wanted to thank Preferred Shore Studios for having us. As always, they do an incredible job on recording all of our podcasts. We have a very special guest in the house, Micheal, and he is a financial advisor, and we're going to get started with him. So, hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Chris?
Do you go by Mike or Michael?
Yeah, Michael's fine.
Okay, Michael.
Good, yeah.
All right. So, see, I'm just messing up your name all
My Hispanic
the time.
friends call me Miguelito, so it's okay. Either way.
So, are you Spanish or are you?
I'm Greek Italian.
Greek Italian.
They're Polish too.
They're Polish. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
Mix.
All right. So I don't mess up your name because I am terrible at names. So, it's Michael Calamaras?
Michael Calamaras. Yeah, that's the Greek part.
The Greek part? Okay,
I've
gotcha.
I've gotten all sorts of sayings and spellings of that.
Sheesh, I can only imagine. I mean, my name's pretty bad, but so. And as I said, you are a financial advisor. How long have you been doing that?
Well, I've been in the industry going over a decade now out of college.
You don't look old enough to be in the business for a decade.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it was interesting. I was supposed to be an engineer. My college degrees were all in engineering, and
Wow.
I graduated sort of just after the crisis in 08-09. So
Okay.
I was not like the star engineering student. I was a good student.
Right.
I was a star socialite in college. I graduated. I'm like, I can't find a job. So I got introduced to financial services just sort of accidentally through a family connection, and been sort of in there ever since. I've gone and done other things in sales, technology, and whatnot in the middle, but came back around to financial services in the last about half decade. So
Okay.
yeah, I've been running the business I have now since 2019.
Okay. And that's you have your own team and everything else. So is that what
Yeah.
you guys are? So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because one of the biggest things that I run into is financial literacy, right? They don't teach that in high school, even really in college. You know, when I get somebody who comes to me and they're looking for a mortgage or some kind of lending, it's surprising to me how much little knowledge they have of it. And also, like, when you're talking to, people were like, oh, should I have a financial advisor? Should I have this? Should I have that? And they don't know what they do. It's like, I mean, I can't tell you how many people I talk to that they're relying on the system for Social Security to take care of them after they retire. And I'm just going to work until I'm 65 and then collect Social Security. Well, what happens if Social Security's gone? Or you just never know. I mean, we keep hearing rumors about it being gone. But, I really think people need to understand that there is there is a need to go out there and talk to somebody and say, how do I plan for retirement? How do I set up my legacy for when I'm gone? And that's really why I wanted to have you on, because we don't talk about it enough. There's not enough of it out there. So kind of walk me through your typical client, or talk to me about how you help.
Yeah. So I think you're right. There's not a lot of education in finance, and how do you retire one day, or how do you put your kids through school or buy the house. It's just people go through life and all of a sudden realize one day, they're like, oh my God, I never had the conversation about any of this with anybody. Or they're relying on, hey, my employer's giving me, this retirement plan,
Right.
hey, that's going to be enough. And unfortunately it isn't for most people. And so people need to really take their financial futures into their own hands. But it's scary. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's people on TikTok saying one thing, and the internet can tell you a million things. And so what's right for you, right? And so it's very nuanced. So our processes are around planning, the bigger picture and consolidation of a lot of moving parts, and make sure everything's in alignment. So we sit down and talk to people about their goals. And I would say it's like coaching almost, right? It's like, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? And help people take the intangible and make it tangible. We find it's like, hey, what are your goals? Like, well, I'd like to be worth a certain amount of money, or this or that. It's like, that's not really a goal. That's a conduit to a goal, which is, I want financial freedom so I can take my family on trips, or I want to be able to, have a second home somewhere one day, or I want to not have to work after I'm 60, right? That sort of stuff, right? So help people sort of contextualize a lot of the intangible macro picture, and then really make them SMART goals. Like by when, what's the number tied to that? And then we help them back that up and say, where are we at now? What do we have between different accounts or insurance policies or, whatever we have, a financial junk drawer stuff people usually have, they've accumulated through life, and say, all right, how is this all working together for the common goal that you have, right? And from there, we give them coaching and guidance, whether it's like adjust your cash flow and savings plan, or is it how to be more tax efficient, or should we be managing risks better? Do we need other insurance to protect your family? And then, on the wealth journey, how can we better build that? So, our clients range. I mean, it can be anybody. A lot of families, because they care about, legacy, and they have responsibilities, and usually that inspires somebody to take action. Although I have some really great clients and people we work with that are just individuals. They don't have kids or anything. They're not even married, but they really care about their financial futures and want to get ahead of it, and they're young. And you don't see that very often where somebody's younger and is like,
I want to work on it, especially the younger crowd, because I think they just they don't know, or they're scared or whatever. And because the biggest thing that, I just went and I taught 11th and 12th graders. We were talking about, like, they had this thing through the chamber where we came in and a bunch of different businesses come in and they talk about what they do and that kind of thing, and really try to get these kids to understand, because they don't understand what's going on. So we actually gave them a budget and everything else that they had to do, what kind of job they got. Like, it was a really cool thing to do. And it's just not out there. And so, like, once you get out of either high school or you go into college and then you get your first job, a lot of people just don't think. And I know I was just as bad when I got out, right?
Same.
And so, I was like, I really wasn't trying to plan my financial future. I wasn't looking into retirement. And then let me tell you, it creeps up fast. I'll be turning 53 this year, and it's like, retirement's not that far away now.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I really prepared for it back then, and really started thinking about it, but, like, so many people don't. Yeah. And so many people, how many times have we seen, on Facebook or something else where people don't even have life insurance,
right,
or something like that, and they're like, they can't even afford to bury their loved one. And it's just, and the thing is like, if they would have just taken a little bit of time to sit down with somebody and say, here, let's look at what we can do and figure out at least a little bit of a plan, right? I know it's tough right now. The economy's tough right now, but you got to look at it long term, because you just, you don't know. And you can't just sit there and think that you're going to make a certain amount of money. It's always going to be there and everything else. And because I've crashed and burned more times than I want to count. And so, things happen, markets change. So, like, to have some kind of plan in place to help secure you, to get you through those tough times, and especially when it's time to retire. I think a lot of people don't put enough effort into that. And so, like, that's why I think it's important for us to really sit down and talk about it, and so I guess the biggest thing is, when you're sitting down with a client, what do you feel like is their biggest need that they're looking through?
I think the biggest need, first of all, is the plan. Mm-hmm. Most people don't have that. Everyone, for the most part, has something. I meet a lot of people who already have some insurance. Mm-hmm. It's never quite enough, based on the numbers, but they usually have something, or they have an employer-based, support. Or they have some savings, but they don't know what they don't know, in that they don't understand, hey, you would like to be financially independent. Let's say it's by 60.
Right.
And you want to maintain your current lifestyle, the quality of life you have today, just as it is now. They don't really understand what it's going to take to do that, so they don't know if they're on track or not. So I think the biggest thing is just education. Like, here's where you are. You're 65% of your way to where you actually want to be based on what you're doing right now. So something has to change.
Right.
It's like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, or you're 100%. Okay, so you can be sort of resting easy. Now, can we just make things more efficient? Because one thing that's important is that no one wants to be even like savings poor, quote unquote. Right? It's like, I put all my money into savings and I can't live my life today.
Right.
And a great example was, I met with somebody, and they were on track based on what they were doing. We were already coaching one of the spouses. The other one, they just got married, so we started working with them too. and they were already on track to what the life they wanted, to maintain their current lifestyle in their mid 50s. And I'm like, the big difference here that we're going to make is that your dollar is going to be more efficient because of tax optimization. And so you could either retire earlier, leave a bigger legacy, live on more money, or save less for the same goal.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, if you save less and you're still happy with the result, now you can just like, you can travel more, you can spend more money with your family, you can maybe live in a little bit better house. Like, so it's more about just like, where are we? Give them that information in the context of the big picture. And that's the biggest thing. And then it's a little bit of education. Like, can we educate you a little bit to make smart choices in your day-to-day lives? Because we're not going to be there every day.
Right.
And we're also not here to hold your feet to a fire on a budget. We're here to tell you what it's going to take, and then, give you the sort of, the tools, the educational tools to make good decisions. And I think that's the big thing. But I do see that people are underprotected, and, based on where they're at in life, they probably need a little bit more insurance. And we're not talking like anything crazy. We're not talking all the complex, strategies that are out there. We're talking just the basics. Right. A little bit of life insurance, maybe some disability or something. And then having a systematized savings plan that will make sure they hit their goals. And because it's really about consistency over time versus like, hey, one day I'm going to make a lot of money, I can save a lot. Or one day I'm going to make a big bonus. It's that can happen.
Right.
But
it's rare.
It's rare, right? Like, all the wealth that I know, for the most part, is made because of consistency over time. And to your point about starting early, the more time you have, the more compounding you have, which makes the results that much easier.
Right.
Someone starting in their 20s versus 30s, I mean, you have to save more than double to reach the same result if you wait 10 years.
It's crazy.
So I'm in my late 30s now, and I'm like, when I look back to when I was in my 20s, I was like, I wish I could go back and like slap myself around and be like, please just save something, even if it's a few dollars a month, just to make things a little bit easier. I wish I had that education. I learned from my parents, just like most people do, right? Like, you see and observe and say, hey, okay, they live a good life, they work hard, like, but what's happening on the back end, you don't really know, a lot of times, right? So some people do, some people don't. I wish I had a little bit more of that in like high school, even through like just basic education and college, which, things that are in college.
Isn't really there, and that's the thing, So they don't teach us, at least I feel like there's the, life experiences, like, hey, what is it like? I mean, with credit, what is it like, to have a life insurance policy? What is it like to get involved into, investing, whether it's an annuity or something like that, or really just trying to understand where you're trying to get to? Yeah. Because, I mean, I'm concerned, and I mean, like I said, I'll be 53 this year, and, and I've maxed out like my Social Security benefit, like how much I pay into it, the last probably 8 years. So like, what happens if it's gone? Yeah. I mean, and I hope it's not, it'll still be there. But there could be a time that it does come to that point, in which, I can't just sit there and count on that. And so like, I just, I'm starting to get a little bit more strategic about what I'm doing and how I'm doing business and how I can try to bump that up even faster. Yeah. And so like, as far as that kind of stuff, but like, it's such a great feeling when you're teaching, younger people. Even when I have a first time home buyer who comes to me and, because they don't understand what the process is like, and they're very, sometimes they're intimidated by it. Yeah. They're like, oh, they got to think they got this, have this much money down. They've got to have this credit score. They got to do this. They got to do that. And it's totally different than what they think. Yeah. And so like, I think that's why it's important, because, speaking to somebody like you is like, hey, let me set up my future and let me be smart about it. And just because that way you can ride the ups and downs, because like in the market we see right now, and especially like even the housing market, the stock market, I mean, it was like a couple weeks ago, the stock market hit the all-time high, and so like, it was like, okay, well, it went up so much, but then again, I mean, then it started dropping again. So like, it's so,
roller coaster.
It is everything is so volatile right now, and what's going on in the marketplace, whether it's what you do, what I do. Yeah. I mean, we had interest rates that, when Trump put all the tariffs on there, Like all of a sudden, the interest rates just dropped because everybody was taking their money and putting it into 10-year treasuries, because it was more secure than the stock market. And then our rates just dropped, and we were actually got down into the fives, but it didn't last.
Yeah.
As soon as he put the pause on the tariffs, then everybody decided to put all their money back in the stock market. And then all of a sudden our rates jumped back up again. So now we're back in the high sixes again.
Yeah.
And so and that's the thing, it's so volatile. But I do believe in some way we're going to see some type of correction with the housing market here anyway, because the thing is that you're starting to see more and more houses go up for sale. I mean, where I live, it seems like a new house is going on the market every day. And so and I see all these for sale signs in my neighborhood, and and the thing is like, okay, well, I have three of the same house all competing for business, competing to sell their house, exact same house.
Yeah.
And so I mean, one of my neighbors, there was like over, I mean, she bought it for she bought the height of the market. It's like over $1 million, and then now she's down to like $899, and she probably put $100,000 into it. And this is, that's just the market, just kind of like this. We can't dictate what happens.
Yeah.
And so, but again, the market's just shifted so much. But that's why you got to ride it out long term. You got, especially with, if you're going to get into the investments, you're going to get into those types of things. One of the biggest things is like, and I don't know if you can, how detailed you can get into this, but like life insurance, right? You have whole life insurance and you have term life insurance. Well, what's better or what's worse?
Sure.
So like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was going to bring this up. There's a lot of tools out there, and every financial product is a tool, right? It's like in your tool belt, and you need to understand what tool you need for the job, right? So if I'm trying to connect two 2x4s together, and I have a screw in my hand, but I pull out my hammer, like that's not going to work as well as like pulling out my drill. And so, what is the tool I need? Another fun analogy I use all the time is like, listen, if I want to win the Tour de France, I need a really good bike,
right,
and a training program to win on that bike. A Ferrari may be faster, but it's not the right tool for the job, right? So I think that's where people get confused. They hear, like life insurance or an investment tool or a stock or something. It could be a great tool for me. And it could be, but in what context? Like what part of the plan is it in? Because it could be good in a silo, in like a little sliver of your pie. Like it could be, it'd be great. But what's the rest of that pie, or what's the building supposed to look like, and how is that going to complement? So all these things can play a role. I think that's where we play a role in someone's life, is like showing them where does that plug in and how. Because I come across a lot of financial tools like life insurance or anything else, and there's people on the internet that can sort of talk about this stuff without really they don't have any backlash if it goes wrong for them, because they don't really have any onus on it, right? Which is unfortunate. But like, this is great, do this, and then everyone does it, and they're like, some people it works for, some people it doesn't, because just for the sheer, because of the numbers, like it was the right fit for that person, but it wasn't right the fit for that other person, or the way they were structured wasn't correct, or how much money was going in there versus not. So that's really where understanding, hey, these tools are out there. Life insurance is a vehicle, different investment tools are out there. But like, how much money should go in there? How should it be structured? How should it fit in with the other things we're doing? Real estate is an example as well, right? Like that's a financial tool and financial asset. It's a tangible asset. It's a lot of clients have a lot of real estate that we work with, and that's not something we're advising on. Like we're not advising on what real estate to own unless it's like in a fund or portfolio that we're managing. But if you own real estate and you're like, hey, I want to put this part of my portfolio, we can show, hey, how do you purchase it safely, optimally? How to use debt, how do you putting funds into this? Like if you're earning an income off of that, or you're going to sell it later, like what's that going to look like? So all these things have a place, and it's just seeing how they all fit into the pie. Right. So, with life insurance, like term or permanent, they both solve certain goals, like protecting your family, leaving a legacy, but they have different use cases. Like whereas term, it's less expensive to get more coverage, and typically you have that if you're like, hey, I have a really big gap. Like if I passed away today, like for me, if I passed away today, I haven't built the nest egg I want to build yet. So my family needs a lot of money that I haven't built yet, and so I need to leave a lot of money behind to replace all the income that I won't earn if I die tomorrow, and all the assets I haven't saved.
All right.
Whereas permanent is much more of I'm going to have this forever. I don't need the death benefit to be as high. I might want to use it as an asset to create, leverage in the future or tax efficiency in the future, but also I want to leave a legacy. And, eventually we all pass away one day, even if it's in our
Can't stop it.
101 or something. Whereas like term, hopefully I outlive it, because hopefully I'm going to live beyond the range of which I hold that insurance. Yeah. But it's like, how do I structure that, right? And everyone's situation is unique because everyone's goals are different. The lifestyle they want to leave, the legacy, their retirement plan is all unique and nuanced. And that's where people get sort of in the wrong thing. Like, oh, I heard whole life is a great tool, or I heard whole life is a horrible tool. And it's like, right. Yeah, maybe in the context of how it was being used, it wasn't good, right?
I think that's the problem is especially when social media has such influence on people nowadays. Yeah. And the thing is like you hear stuff like that. And the biggest thing is like everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
It could depend on your income. It could depend on if you have a spouse. It depends on if you have kids. I mean, everybody, you can't put one person into a box. And the thing is like, you hear people saying, well, you should do this. I remember when the rates dropped and there was like all these loan officers going out there, oh my God, the rates are dropped. Christmas just came, blah, blah, blah. And then it's gone in 3 days. And it's like, okay, so you got everybody to jump on your bandwagon. But you're also going to upset a lot of people because when they call you and they say, okay, you said it was in the fives, now we're not in the fives anymore, it's almost like a bait and switch type of thing where that's the problem. And that's why, like, you'll never see me jump on Facebook or anything and say, oh my God, we're here. You need to like hurry up and get it, right? It's like, look, rates have gotten better, because everybody has a different credit score. Everybody has a different type of loan project. They just don't fit into one program, depending on what they do with their life, how, if they're a business owner. There's a lot of different things that you just got to be careful with and what you say. And so, like, that's the problem. You see on the internet, oh, you should do this, or you should do that, or you should invest in this. And so, but everybody is different. So, like, you really need to sit down with somebody, whether it's you or somebody else, and have those conversations that, okay, let's look at where you're at right now. Okay, well, you just got out of college. Okay, well, let's get you, depending on insurance, and you probably can't save as much or whatever. Yeah. And so, but you got to like have that plan and put it together and say, okay, I can do this or I can do that. Right. All right. So same thing when people come to me when they want to buy a house. Okay, let me look at what you can afford because, depending on your income, I mean, you can't buy that $1 million house making $40,000 a year, and so it's like, okay.
House poor forever.
So, and people just don't know. I mean, they have these expectations out of things. And so like, it's hard because so many people believe what they see on social media. And it's like, okay,
they take it for face value, right?
Yeah, I mean, so then they, and then when they do call you and they're expecting, well, I saw this, or I saw this, or I read this, and I'm just like, but you got to remember, everybody's different. Yeah. You can't just fit them in one box. My position could be way different than yours, right?
There's no blanket advice, right? It's like,
I mean, I'm 53. You're just about to hit your 40s, right? So there's a 13-year gap or more, right? So like, my time of retirement is coming out faster than your time. Same thing like you just said with the 20 and 30s, that's a 10-year difference, and if you really haven't started thinking about what you're doing and how you're going to prepare. But, I mean, fortunately, a lot of people that are in their 20s are like, oh, that's so far away before I retire. I don't have to worry about it,
right?
And the thing is like,
you
don't, and the next thing you know, I mean, I have a 30-year-old. I mean, my son just turned 30.
Nice.
And so like, I'm like, all right, and before you know it, it's there. Yeah. And so you got to start planning you got to start looking at things because I think it's very important. And, as far as giving back. And there's a lot of other things you do. You just don't do being a financial advisor. You got a pretty awesome podcast as yourself, right? As Leaders and Legends.
Leaders and Legends, yeah.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah, Leaders and Legends. I started that a little bit of a passion project. I've always wanted to do a podcast. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I enjoy them. I think it's a good way to consume knowledge and get to sort of meet people and different perspectives. And I love that it allows for less sort of like overproduction and scripting than the typical media has been, the legacy media has been. Like, listening to different leaders of companies. So I wanted to start it in my job. Like, I talk to a lot of people and I hear their stories. And I typically hear the ins and outs of their lives, and that's how we do a good job for them. And so that stuff is confidential. And so like, some of these stories are really good. Like, they need to be out there. And
Right.
so I'm like, I like the podcast idea, and I love business. And so my whole focus of my podcast was to talk about just business and entrepreneurship, leadership. And so it can really be anything. It could be a leader in your family or in a business or in a corporation or an athlete, a team. And I just want to share the story and the unique journey and what it takes to be successful and resilient, because we're all going through different things. We experience a lot of similar things, which is like, hey, how do we manage people? How do we deal with obstacles and challenges and success? And so I wanted to just show people that, they could probably do it too, with a little bit of extra knowledge and motivation. So it's been fun. I started it last, I think May now. So coming up on a year.
Okay. So that was part of the reason. So one of the things that my original podcast was called Real Hustle, and then I switched it around. I gotten sick, so I was like, okay, I want to do something a little bit different. So I changed the name up, changed a little bit of the format up, but sort of kind of the same mindset. What was going on with me was I had grown my business very quickly, and and then of course what really got to me, and this is part of the reason that I really wanted to do a podcast, is because people only saw my success, right? They saw me driving around in a nice car, they saw me with my nice house and my nice clothes or whatever, but what they didn't see is what it took to get there.
Yeah.
And what I've been through. Like I said, I've lost it many times, and so I've been up, I've been down, and I've been quite journeyed through my life, and so they don't understand what the hours, like this morning, I was up at 4 a.m. this morning already working because I knew I had the podcast today. I knew I had other things that were going on after this. So like I needed to get stuff done. Nice. And so like what people they're like, well, you got up at what? And I'm like, but that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
So they don't hear stories. And when I sit down, and I know a lot of business owners and I know a lot of other different people, Don, for example, like I remember when I first met Don from Tweeds. I mean, his story was he was working for his dad, delivering dry cleaning for his dad, but then he would go 10 doors one way and 10 doors the other way and say, hey, I just dropped off some clothes at Chris Kiblin's house. I'm his dry cleaner, so if you guys ever need any dry cleaning, we're right here. We're always dropping stuff off at his house. I was like, that's friggin' brilliant. I was like, and the passion that he had to help his dad build that business. And so I started it because a lot of people only see the top, right, or where you're at. They don't see where you're coming from, and it kind of upset me a little bit because like the thing is like you started getting haters. Unfortunately, you start getting people get jealous. Sure. You start getting other stuff, and that was the one thing that kind of drove me nuts. Is because like, look, you don't realize when I grew up in a very bad section of Baltimore. Wasn't the nicest neighborhood, what I've gotten out of, and how we grew up. And so, you don't know my story. And, and so that's where I got into this. So that's one of the things I wanted to ask you is, okay, so what was the reasoning for wanting to be a financial advisor?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and honestly, you got a team too, right? So
yeah, I've got some people that work with me, and, I didn't imagine I'd be here. If you sort of go back, like I thought I'd be an engineer first. Right. The recession sort of ruined those dreams for me. There were no jobs. I said I'd work for free for people, and they're like, "Hey, we can't bring you on because our paid people aren't doing anything." And
right.
So I got introduced to financial services, but I had an ego back then because I was like, I have 2 degrees in college, like, I'm owed something, right? And so I can't say I did that well out of college. I did okay. I can't say I didn't work that hard because I didn't know what it took to be successful, really.
Right.
in my heart. I was like, all right, I have degrees, and so I should just be working and making money, and that's not the reality. So I did okay, and then I got recruited to another company where the guy who was in executive leadership there really kicked my ass. I mean, if I can say that. Really did. He was like, here's what's going to take, like, bust your butt and earn sort of the next phase. And so that's really, really learned on, like, the grit aspect of building a business and, like, cold calling and doing sales and all things it requires to be successful in reality. Did well and sort of rose through those ranks, but it's corporate and a company that changes their strategy a lot. And then, like, I started getting disaligned with, like, what the company wanted, what the corporate hierarchy was doing, because it just didn't make sense in my mind. And so we had, misalignment and disagreement. And then I had to change. I was, like, doing pretty well, and I was like, all right, I got to get out of this corporate structure. So that didn't work. So I'm like, all right, now what do I do? I didn't really know what to do. I was like, all right. So I got did a lot of different soul searching. Luckily, I had some money saved up, but like really had to restart because I was looking at M&A, mid-market M&A. I looked at being a business broker. I looked at owning, like, insurance agencies, like auto and home agencies, all sorts of stuff. And, like, nothing was really hitting the mark for me because I was like, I don't know and I really didn't want to come back into financial services because my initial experience out of college was I wasn't successful. So it was almost like a gut-wrenching thing to think about it. But then I found where I'm at today, just sort of through relationships and connections, and community and relationships has always been my strength. And so that's really how it's fitting. That's how I ended up finding this role, and found a framework where I could be my own sort of boss and be an entrepreneur, but have a structure and feel confident in the information and resources around me to do what I set out after college to do, but I wasn't in the right mindset back then. I had got the experience and sort of the ass kicking I needed to figure out, okay, here's what it's going to take. And so if I could start from scratch pretty much in a context that made sense, in a framework that made sense, and I was in the right place to do it at that point. And so being back in financial services was mostly, it's a little bit of serendipity, but a lot of trial and error of finding what worked and didn't work over that previous sort of decade almost, right? Because it was even in college, going back to being an engineer, like my father would get angry at this just because college was so expensive. But I was a double major engineer. It was actually midway through my engineering degree, the recession started occurring, and I'm like, all right, well, my roommate was going to be there for 5 years because of his architecture degree. I'm like, let me see if I could become more marketable by adding on another engineering degree. So I had 2 engineering degrees, which bring me to 4.5 years, and then I added a business minor, which gave me to 5. And I'm like, hopefully by then, like, the recession will have, like,
been done,
completed its phase, and there'll be jobs or whatever. And it didn't turn out like that. But even, like, in those last years I was there, I was in a fraternity, and I was constantly going to, like, social events and mixers and parties and whatever. And I remember all my buddies in the engineering lab, like computer lab, and it was 7 or 8 o'clock. We're working on a project at night on, like, a Friday. The computer lab lights were off, so it was, like, dim and dark in there.
Geez.
And they were like, we're all on the computers, and I'm like, all right, guys, I'll see you, Monday or whatever. And they're like, where are you going? I'm like, going to a party after. It's like, and my buddy's like, you're the most social engineer that I know. And I'm like, that's where I get
most
energy.
engineers aren't. I mean, they're very quiet,
Yeah.
And they're very analytical.
Yeah.
And so, like, because I've done deals for engineers before, and when I go over numbers, I mean, they go over numbers.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
engineers are like, okay, you need to break this down to me
Yeah.
by this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so, like, when I have an engineer, I know, like, now, like, before, it's like, as I was growing, I didn't know, but, like, they look at everything. And they're very analytical about it, and they're like, okay, I want to know penny by penny, like that kind of stuff. And and nothing wrong with being an engineer. That's just who you are.
Different
but it is a different perspective. But also I do notice most of them are like, they're so sound-minded on what they do.
Yeah.
The social aspect isn't it's a little bit different. Yeah. And so, like, as far as that, so, like, that's kind of interesting that you went into that, and now you're in financial advisors, which is more of a sales role, right? I mean, so
much more personable, social.
Yeah. So, like, it's a different type of job when you have to do this, sort of like with mine. I mean, when I was younger, I didn't like, I was actually really shy as a kid. Like, I didn't want to talk to nobody. Like, I wouldn't just walk up to somebody. But I soon realized that if I'm going to make it in this world of lending, that I had to change that.
Yeah.
I had to be, I had to go be able to talk to people, walk up to people, not worry about it, and just get over that fear of it.
Yeah.
And stop being that way. And you know what? Don't worry about whatever the consequences are. I mean, it wasn't like I made it a lot worse in my head than what it really was.
It's interesting you say that because I look back at, and it's like maybe, based on you weren't ready then, right? Same thing for me. If I go back to high school, I was social, but I wasn't the popular kid, and I wasn't like confident or anything like that. I was very non-confident actually. And then that flipped in college. But like I get my energy from people now. If you had like asked me back then in high school, like, hey, would you work with people? I'd probably be like, I don't think so. I'm probably the guy you want to doing math problems and engineering. And you look at me now, it's like, you don't want me doing that. Like I can do it, but I get so burnt out from like dedicating my resources and time to like that detail oriented stuff that you don't want me doing that anymore. You rather have me go out and talk to people and be that guy. So it's really flipped, but I wouldn't have known that back then. And I think that's another thing that I wish that schools and like they taught the basic financial stuff, but also taught people how to understand themselves, which is not. It's like, here's this framework, just like start learning stuff and then go out and do it. It's like, no, because like I probably would have not even gone into engineering,
right?
Having known like that's not really who I am, realistically.
It's funny because I mean, I know so many people have gone to college and and then they don't even use their degree for what they went to college for.
Yeah.
And so like it's like like a person I know, she went to school for being a teacher. I mean, has her master's in being a teacher, and yet she's a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, and like and like a social butterfly at the gym. And so like but like teaching wasn't. She tried it, she didn't like it, and she moved on.
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of that, and there's just a lot of that in real estate. I mean, even in my world, like I hated school. Barely graduated high school. Started after I went in the Army, got out, started going to college, and tried to go into college, and then my wife got pregnant, and like 3 months later. So then I had to start supporting a family. So college went right out the door because I was working all the time, and so it was just there wasn't enough room in my life. But I wasn't like college, And so like the thing is like it just really depends on what you want to do. I mean. And the thing is one of the things that I've always had though is I've always worked hard, and I've always, ever since I was a kid. I mean, I was 12 years old working, and all my friends are out and playing. I'm trying to like go cut lawns and rake leaves and do whatever I can to make money. And because my parents, they're like, you want it, you get paid for it.
Yeah.
And so we're not giving it to you. So I learned at a very young age, if I wanted anything, I had to work for it. So I always had that. I always had that mindset. And the Army, when I joined the Army, just kind of, made it a little bit more dialed in, But like the thing is things still happen, And like 2014, I lost everything. I got into the mortgage world like 2011. I've always been in like some kind of financial services. I started out as a teller, went there and worked my way up to like being on the desk side, opening accounts. I actually had my my life and health license and sold some annuities and that kind of stuff. I tried taking my Series 7 license, but I think I missed it by like 3 or 4 questions.
It's a tough test.
It was a tough test.
That's one of the harder ones.
And so, so I took that, and then that really wasn't for me. Got into more of the lending side, did business banking. But, I never had a degree, so it kind of limited me, especially in the banking world. I couldn't move up as much as I wanted to because I didn't have that degree. And that's when I got into retail lending. And I was like, okay, well, I'll start doing mortgages. However, but like you, I had to cold call and make phone calls, and like I sat in a desk and they bought the leads and I had to call them, and that's all I did all day. And that, you talk about a tough job. And that's all I did was sit there and and some leads were better than others, but like you'd be like, who is this? Why are you calling me? And I'm calling people, and so But it makes you learn. It makes you learn that
Yeah.
like how to talk to people, how to get them on the phone, how to convert them, how to build that relationship over the phone. Because like even now, that's a huge thing. Like I don't see many of my clients, so I've got to build that relationship over the
Yeah.
phone. And so and that's the hard part. But the thing is like it can be said. I mean, you don't always. I mean, if you want a degree, you can get a degree, but like there's other opportunities out there
Sure.
too that you don't need a degree. I mean, so like I never want to like disown not having going to college, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so and I mean, I've made it, but I've also lost it all. So
Sure.
like, but there's many business owners that have been through that.
I've met a lot of people that have a lot, like have very successful today, but they've lost more times than most people have even tried, and they're still successful, right? Because it's mostly that skill of just resilience. I think
Don't give
in
up.
life, right? It's resilience. Just there's gonna be a lot of things that go wrong and go sideways. And going back to your even statements earlier about like the markets going up and down and this happening or that, it's like just about resilience. Like, can you withstand turmoil for short periods of time, for long periods of growth? And it's never going to be a linear line. It's going to be like an up and down thing, and you're going to eventually get to somewhere you want to be. But the same thing, I think the again, like the 9 to 5, the W-2, there's people that are going to excel in that framework. But there's people that are stuck in that framework that shouldn't be there, and that with skills of like just go own your own future. You have no limitations. Your limitations are yourself.
Yep, absolutely.
And you're going to fail, but you can always come back from that, right? As long as you have the grit, determination to do so, right?
Well, that was kind of like me because when I moved here to Florida, I moved down here and I took a job going back into retail banking, hated it. Soon quit that. Went and sold gym memberships for LA Fitness, then went and sold personal training for UFit. I was like, I got to get back in the mortgage world. And for like about 2 years, went and got my license because in the banking world, you didn't need it. And so I got my license and it struggled for 2 years. And then I was like, all right, if I don't get going, I came up with this whole game plan and everything else. I was like, all right, follow it, be strict, just be like out there and do it. And then I started seeing the changes and the success that it had.
Right.
But I thought for sure I was going to be back in the banking world, running a branch or doing something.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, all right, this isn't working. And I'm like, but then I started kind of figuring out the system and how to do it. So sometimes it doesn't happen right away.
Yeah.
It takes time to build it. It takes time in your business to build it, and really, that's the thing. It's like, one of the things I kind of talk about too is, just because you're doing a certain job, whatever that job might be, and let's say it is whatever it is you went to school for, is it your passion? I mean, I don't know. Life's short, and is it what you want to do? Even if you have to go do what you really love to do on the weekends or at night or something like that to get you started, and figuring it out, right? And then as you can grow, and because you still need that income to come in, I mean, I've got people that want, there's some people that want to come join doing what I do, but they, it's commission only. So, I mean, you only get paid when the deal's closed. So it's a much different environment, and it takes time to build that environment. And so, and it's, and that's why, like, I think financial planning and that kind of thing is very important to people, and really to get to know what they're doing. And so, like, people like you that I feel are very important in this world because so many people don't understand.
Yeah.
And they really need to sit down and come up with a game plan on, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to build my future? How can I do it the realistic way and be smart about it,
Yeah.
and just don't wing it?
Yeah.
And you see that a lot. So
Yeah.
now some of the, I think someone was telling me, and maybe I'm wrong, but like you're also very big in the giving back and charities and that kind of thing. And didn't you just do an event, Women in Shoes? Women in Shoes?
Wide Women in Shoes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what was that? Because tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I got involved with them, going back probably 2012. I just gotten started in finance, and I was just getting out there in the community a bunch, and I was invited to be a soulman. A soulman is it's one of the guys, SOLE, like for shoes, right?
Right.
One of the guys that helps out during the day, because the event is catered around towards women, the whole
Right.
event. So we helped out during the day. We serve wine at the tables. We help like raise extra money. We just do all of like the like servant stuff basically.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I got involved back then for a few years, and then I was in the corporate world and sort of backed out of doing a lot of community-based things for a little while because my mind was just dragged in so many different directions. And when I started my business again, doing my own thing in 2019, I got reconnected with them. It's a great organization. So it's actually supporting 40 Carrots Family Center. They're a early childhood development center and a parenting advocacy group. So they have a preschool and they have therapists and they help people who need help being better parents and help families. And a lot of children, like their early development is what's going to dictate a lot of their like later in life,
Right.
like personalities and all that. So anything with kids, I support. And it's a fun event. They do a good job in town. I love the people who run the organization. But Wine, Women, and Shoes, they're also in a national organization. They put together fundraising events for charities. So like each town you might go to, the Wine, Women, and Shoes event will support whatever charities locally they've partnered with. So 40 Carrots is the one here.
Right.
But Wine, Women, and Shoes is like an all-day thing at the Ritz. There's women drinking all day, wine, and buying a lot of stuff, and all that money is going towards the charity. They raised over $1 million this last year in the one-day event. So as a soul man, it's fun because I get to hang out. There's like 40 to 50 guys. A lot of them are prominent business owners, people in town. And I actually met a few people going back to 2012 when I first did it that I'm friends with today because of the volunteer time that we spent. And so, so it's if a company buys a table, let's say at this event, the tables aren't cheap. They'll be like, hey, you need a soul man assigned to your table. And so they'll pick one of the husbands of one of the women who are going or something, right? Okay. So you get to meet cool, interesting people. Right. And there's an even smaller subset of this group that are obviously crazy like me who want to do the dance performance on stage. And so there's like 10, maybe like 15, 20 of us out of that group that will get together on a Sunday for like 2 hours for two or so months and practice a dance routine. And our other friends over at Fly Dance Fitness are their choreography team. So they help choreograph this like 10 to 15 minute dance routine.
Gotcha.
So we come out on stage and dance. So it's been cool, but I like it because obviously it's supporting a good charity. I like all the people who run the organization. And then, for like 2 months, I got to hang out with some cool guys and
that's awesome.
Be silly and dance, but also make good relationships out of it, which has been nice. So yeah, it's fun. And then we do a dance routine on stage and sort of embarrass ourselves. So we're actually pretty good by the end of all the practicing because fly dances. The people over there are great, so they do a good job teaching us.
So that's where you guys go, is the fly dance?
That's where they coach us and everything.
Because it was funny because like I just actually watched a video of somebody's wedding that they learned from fly dance over there, and I was like, holy cow, it was pretty intense.
Yeah, they're a viral sensation.
Yeah,
it's right here in town.
I didn't even realize it was here, and they're like, oh, it's here, and I'm like, what?
They're growing a lot. They've opened a few locations. I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So let's go back to you a little bit, and before we end everything. So what are some of the challenges you've had to overcome that's really been big in your business that you could share?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things, I guess, right? I mean, the first thing is going back to, like, take ego out of it, because I think that's the biggest thing that held me back. When I left college, I just assumed, like, I knew a lot of stuff, and I didn't. And it's like, you don't know what you don't know. I think the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything about almost anything. You're like, wow, I've learned a lot about financial services. You're like, I still don't know a lot. Or in life. So I think the biggest thing I could say is, like, be constantly consuming new information. Podcasts are great for that, books, right? And so keep doing that, because for many years, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize what I wasn't aware of, right? That was especially when I was making career transitions. Like, wow, I didn't even know these things existed to even make it an option for me. Like, I looked at, like mid-market M&A when I was sort of introduced to it, and I'm like, I don't even know what this means. What the letters even stand for. Now I understand it, because I've like researched a little bit. I still don't know enough about it, but I know enough to like make a good decision. So that sort of stuff, right? And then it's about not being afraid to fail, I guess, right? Like, just go do things and give it your all, like really try hard, and you never know when it might come out of it. And for, early on, I think I was more scared of just the failure of it all, right? It's like, I'm supposed to be doing this. What if I fail? What if I don't do well? And having like a real opinion about things. And being able to like state my opinions and not be afraid of like people like, oh, I don't agree with that. It's okay to disagree on stuff. Like it's one thing I think in our current environment, especially with politics and everything right now, it's like people need to be okay to have a thoughtful conversation and disagree, and not be like so adamant about the position that they can't listen to somebody else, but also not be afraid to state their opinions because they're afraid of someone not agreeing with them.
Right.
Like,
afraid how they're going to react to it.
Like, I'm going to see different perspectives because purely like I'm probably getting a feedback loop in my day about the things that I see and like. Social media is sort of designed that way now. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, I like cars. Like, I'm going to see car stuff all the time because social media knows like I want to see that stuff, but like, it's never
especially if you just sit and look at it for like 2 seconds and you're like, I mean, next thing you know, it's all in your feed.
So it's not going to like give me things that are innately like something I don't want to, but probably need to experience. I need to hear your differing views on things so I can think critically about stuff, right? So I think being able to be a little bit more open, outspoken about different things and how I feel, so I can get the conversation, right? Have that conversation with people. And yeah, like just not be afraid. I mean, that's the big thing. It's just, what do you have to lose, right? So, like as far as like experiential stuff, right? So
that's why I go back to is, one of the things is that I talk about is that, the way I look at it is we only have one life, right? So like, don't worry, yeah, it's scary. It's scary to go on your own. It was scary for me when I decided I wanted to do mortgages and it's commission based in. There's not a salary or anything else involved, right? So what I put into it is what I get out of it, and so when you do make that jump, whether you want to be an entrepreneur or own your own business, a sole proprietor, whatever that might be in your life, or doing something like that, and you make that leap of faith, it's like, okay, well, yeah, it's going to be scary because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to work or the income's not going to work or it's not going to be there. But you don't know until you try. Yeah. And so that's the thing. So would you rather sit there and be miserable at some job making $50,000 a year or somewhere where you could have the potential to make as much money as you want? Yeah. And so like depends on how you put into it. Again, you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. And so you want to, if you need to work 7 days a week, you need to work 7 days a week and bust your ass. And so like, and I try to explain that to people and I try to make them understand like, look, this job is not easy. Yeah. I mean, if it's easy, everybody would do it. Same thing with your top realtors, top loan officers, top financial advisors, whatever that is, right? It's not an easy job. And so like, if you're really going to go after it, you got to work. I mean, I work 7 days a week. I mean, if I get a call on a Sunday and I need somebody to get pre-approved or I need to work on their mortgage or I need to do something with them, I take that call. I mean, and that, part of the reason I do that is because I know a lot of my other counterparts won't.
Yeah.
And so like, so that kind of builds my reputation and what I can get done. And, and people hear about that. And that's how part of the reason why I grew. Because I'd answer my phone, and sometimes that's all it is. Yeah. And so and that's the thing where people don't realize is like, hey, yeah, you got to just step outside of your box. But like the thing is like, okay, are you okay just going to that 9-to-5 job every day? Are you okay just doing what you're doing? What is your aspirations? And sometimes we got to go after it. And so it's hard to kind of like, okay, you're going to have, because you are going to fail. Yeah. Like you said, right? Yeah. I mean, I know a lot. I mean, I think I know more than most when it comes to mortgages and the type of stuff that you have to go through. But there's so much more out there that I don't know. I mean, there's so many there's new programs popping up all the time. There's new guidelines changing all the time. Commercial lending has really tightened up. They used to be, commercial lending used to be so easy for me to go find, hard money lenders, commercial lenders. And now they're like, there's certain things. Now there's like certain requirements. And whereas before, I mean, it was pretty easy. Yeah. And so like, it's just, that's the market we're in, right? Yeah. So many, and a lot of my commercial customers are scrambling because they were used to finding the money and it was super easy to go get the money before. And now it's not. So now they're like, what are we going to do? And then so it's harder to find those types of people. People are taking a step back. I mean, I deal with a lot of hard money lending, and those guys used to be a lot more looser than they used to be. Not anymore. They're like, I want to see this, this, and this, and like, it's like, so it's just, I mean, the market's shifted. So you got to be more creative and you got to be more understanding, but you also got to go out there and find as many people as you can, and it's all numbers.
Resiliency.
Game.
I mean, that's the thing, and that's another piece of it. I think that sometimes people fear, which is writing down the big picture things they want, like writing it down, because once you write it down on paper, it's like, oh, it's real now. I have to actually work for this, and then create a plan sort of backwards from that, which gives you an actionable item. And I think it's important because it doesn't give you excuses when things do get tough, right? It's like, oh, the market shifted or this is happening. You can't just give up on that dream or goal because now it's gotten tough, and that makes it sort of like you have to come to reality with yourself. Whether it could be in business, it could be like health and weight loss, right? That's like one of the more common thing for everybody. It's like, oh, I wanted to get in shape, and this happened at work, and I can't do that. And the kids, like, okay, well, if you write it down and have an actual plan and have discipline, you can't just like give up on it so easily. And that's the big thing when it comes to investing, weight loss, being fit, building a business. It requires like a lot of resiliency over time, and to like write that down. And you've done, things with Cardone and Maxwell, like, and all of them are sort of in the same vein. It's like, it's not just about, and I've been really good, like my shortcomings, like I've been really good in my career and horrible with my fitness at the same time. I've been really good with my fitness and horrible in my career or with my family.
Yeah.
It's like, right. It's like, can you be good and have a disciplined plan with fitness and your family and your career and like all the things that sort of like round you out as spirituality, whatever it is for you, right? It's like, so have a plan, write it down and have a plan. And at that point it becomes real, too real for some people. And that's where it's like, I've even been like, oh crap. Like I was, I wrote it down now. I was supposed to go to the gym 3 times a week and I did it. Like, whoops, I failed. That's okay. Like just find a plan and make it work.
I think most people, they stick to it more if they write down some kind of plan.
Yeah.
Like every year I write up a business plan for the year and say, okay, I want to hit X amount of dollars, or deal with this many customers or whatever it is. Okay, but that's just one piece of the plan. Then there's the fitness plan. Then there's the family plan or the travel plan. I mean, like these are all things that I put on there, and I purposely put them on there because I want to aspire to try to get to them.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't have to be just work. I mean, it could be other things. Be a better father, be a better husband, be a better person. And so like that was one of my big plans this year, was to be a better person in our community and give back. Like I signed up to be an ambassador for men wear, because it used to be real men wear pink, now it's men wear pink. So I signed up this year to do that and raise $2,500 just because somebody came to me and they were like, hey, I think you'd be great at this, and I was like, well, I do want to give back, and that would be a great way, because then I just found out, like, it was crazy that the timing. 2 weeks ago, my sister just told me she had gotten breast cancer, stage 2.
Sorry to hear that.
And so, I mean, she's going to go through the chemo, which everything should be fine. But I was just like, it's like, I don't know, sometimes things just happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And so, like, I was just okay. So, I'm really trying to make it, give back to the community that gave me so much, and just be a part of it, and just, and being more involved, and try to be diligent about it. But I got to pick and choose wisely.
Yeah.
There's so much out there.
A lot to do.
There's so much out there, and like if you're not careful, it's just a time sucker.
You'll just you'll have to do a lot of things.
And and like you're talking about it, right? I mean, like the fitness is very big on my to-do list. I actually competed a couple years ago. And so, and then like as far as like work and then trying to be out there in the community, trying to be a part of that, I've got a family, and it's just like, okay, well, there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
It's like, and I got to sleep sometime, but like, it's hard. It's not easy. I mean, but you figure it out, you work it out, and you make it work, and you do as best you can. And I think that's the thing, is doing the best you can really makes a difference.
The best you can. You're just a little bit better each day. And then trying to integrate it together the best you can. That's like same philosophy in the financial planning? Like, is it all integrated together, and are they working in concert, or are these things working sort of like in their own vein? I think about that a lot. Like, how can I do things I do for my career and meet people that could be clients for us, but also do the things that I care about, which is like, be at my kids', school things or athletics, or, be at these volunteer and charity things that I care about. And can I sort of be doing both things at once authentically for the right reasons? Even with fitness, like a lot of that's been my bigger challenge, which is, like, when do I work out? Either it's really early in the morning at 5 a.m. because it's before everything, I don't have other responsibilities, or I'd have to find a way to like integrate the family into it in some way. And I haven't sort of like mastered that yet, but maybe I could,
Right.
And some people I see like have a really good like dynamic with the family. So they're able to not sort of sacrifice, hey, family time for fitness time or work time for family time, right? It's like, can you integrate in some way? Because balance is tough. And there's always going to be imbalances in some place, right? So
yeah, nothing's perfect, because you sit there and focus like, hey, well, I'm gonna make sure I'm focusing on my family, but then something else falls off.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like it's hard to find the balance for everything.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing.
We all struggle with it.
So, all right. So, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So for the financial work we do, search my name, Micheal Calamaras, online. I have Instagram, Facebook, and we have a website. michaelcalamaras.nm.com, and then the podcast is Leaders and Legends Podcast. It's Leaders, the + Legends.
Okay.
It's and we're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, sort of anywhere, but we're all over social media too. I think every platform for social media you can have for that. So we're on there at leaders.legends on Instagram, and then LinkedIn and everywhere. But yeah, you can DM me and shoot a message or.
Appreciate it. So you guys know where to go. So if you need some financial planning, hit Michael up and make sure you get in touch with him. I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate having me. It was good talking to you.
All right, guys. That concludes our show today. Thank you for joining. Make sure you go and you subscribe and you like us. We are on Spotify, but if you really, really want to like us, go to YouTube and subscribe there. Watch our video. Make sure you check us out. And until next time.